The Atlantic fog rolled in so thick it tasted like wet iron on the tongue. Somewhere inside that bruised gray wall, the bark Meridian groaned, her timbers contracting with the same hollow shiver that had racked her crew for 47 endless days. Captain Jared Whitlock stood on the quarterdeck, fingers drumming a silent funeral march against the rail. 47 days since the trade winds abandoned them. 47 days since the last pipe of tobacco had been rationed to a pinch so small it could hide inside a thimble. 47 days of watching Scurvy pick his men off like a bored card shark peeling aces from the bottom of the deck. He slipped the leather pouch from inside his coat. It was still warm from the heat of his chest, the tobacco inside. What little remained, giving off a ghost of Virginia sweetness that made his mouth flood so hard it hurt. One draw. One selfish, soul-settling draw and the shakes would stop. The fog would edge back, and for 30 seconds he could pretend the Meridian still sailed under a sky that remembered mercy. Footsteps scraped behind him. First Mate Boone, cheeks sunken to shadowed hollows, eyes fever-bright. "Beg pardon, Captain. Men are a skin. Will we share tonight?" The question died to a whisper, as if the fog itself might be eavesdropping. Jared's thumb worried the drawstring. One pinch split 9 ways wouldn't fill a single bowl. Yet denying them risked the last threads of loyalty snapping before sunrise. He was still weighing the math when the lookout's cry cracked across the deck like a musket shot. "Land ho! Dead ahead! Impossible!" Charts showed nothing for 100 miles. But the fog parted, theatrical, revealing a jagged spine of black rock clawing at the moon. An island unmarked, unnamed, unholy, yet crowned with a single flicker of orange light. Every soul aboard felt the shift, desperation pivoting to terror. Uncharted land meant uncharted reefs, unknown natives, or worse, privateers happy to gut a derelict merchantman for her iron fittings. Jared's first instinct roared. Order the helmsman hard alee, flee back into the blank safety of the fog. Then he saw the longboat beached below the cliffs, prow cracked like a picked bone. Survivors, or bait? The crew waited, eyes reflecting lantern light like starving wolves. Jared lifted the pouch high enough for all to see. "Half stays with us," he declared, voice raw. "Half goes to whoever lit that fire. If they're friend, we buy alliance. If they're foe, we buy intel." A gamble measured in shreds of dried leaf, the last currency left in their world. They rode through surf that hissed like serpents, 6 skeletal men bracing against each cold slap. The beach crunched under the keel, a sound too loud, too final. Fog clung to Jared's coat, seeping through wool to chill bone. Ahead, a single set of footprints crossed the volcanic sand, vanishing into shadowed boulders. No return tracks. The firelight came from a natural amphitheater of rock. Inside sat a man carved from driftwood and deprivation. Coat stitched from sailcloth, beard trailing to his navel, eyes holding the hollow glitter of someone who has conversed with the abyss and been laughed at. Between his palms he rubbed a stub of cedar, producing the faint spark that had lured them. He did not rise, did not speak, only lifted his gaze to the pouch dangling from Jared's fist. Jared's fingers moved without permission, loosening the string, offering half the treasure across the crackling air. The stranger accepted with the reverence of a priest taking communion, then crumbled the leaf into a corncob pipe that materialized from his rags. One coal from his cedar nest touched the bowl. An ember flared, perfuming the night with summer fields and forgotten homes. He inhaled, exhaled, and finally spoke. Voice like gravel tumbling down a well. "Captain who feeds a dying stranger his last vice. Tonight you've paid a debt older than these rocks. When the moon drinks the tide, I'll show you water calm as forgiveness. But forgiveness always tastes of blood. Are you prepared to meet the price you haven't yet met?" The fog folded back over them, muffling ocean and ship alike. In that sudden hush Jared heard his own heartbeat counting down, felt the Meridian's desperate crew behind him, felt the pouch now half empty and yet somehow heavier, waited with the certainty that every choice from this moment would cut deeper than tobacco ever could. Somewhere beyond the cliffs, surf hammered an unseen reef like distant artillery. Somewhere closer, the Hermit smiled around the pipe stem, an expression not quite sane, not quite safe, but undeniably grateful. And gratitude, Jared would soon learn, is the most dangerous currency on any sea. The pipe passed from cracked lip to cracked lip, each man drawing just enough to remind his blood it still carried oxygen. When it returned to Jared, the bowl glowed one final time, a tiny sun dying in his palm. He tapped the ash into the sand, watched the wind claim it, and knew the old world was finished. Whatever rose with the dawn would demand more than tobacco. It would demand the reckoning he had sailed 3 oceans to outrun. Behind him the longboat rocked, eager to return. Ahead, the Hermit stood, candle thin against the dark, beckoning toward cliffs that promised either salvation or slaughter. Jared followed, pouch still warm against his heart, the last of its contents already turning to smoke in the salt-heavy air. An offering, a contract, a fuse, and in the distance, the Meridian's hull groaned again. No longer just wood and iron, but a witness to the bargain being struck. 47 days without comfort had brought them here. 47 minutes from now, they would discover whether generosity is a virtue or a death sentence written in ash and starlight. 3:17 a.m. black water silence shattered by the sound of surf cannonading against stone. The moon, a slit throat of silver, bled thin light across the uncharted island, while 6 starving sailors followed a human wraith named Elias Finch up a basalt spine that threatened to slice the sky in half. Captain Jared Whitlock's boots slipped on volcanic glass. Each misstep sent pebbles cartwheeling into the abyss, their clatter echoing like distant musket fire. An auditory countdown nobody had asked for. 18 minutes. That was the window navigator Boone had calculated between tide turns when the reef gate, an accidental arch of coral and granite, would stand just high enough for Meridian's shallow draft to slip through. After that, the Atlantic would ram the entire reef closed with 1,000,000 tons of cold, indifferent water. Jared felt the numbers pulsing in his neck. 1,080 heartbeats to find salvation or burial ground. Elias paused at a knife-edge ridge, raised a candle-thin arm, and pointed into the cauldron below. Fog peeled away as if obeying an unseen stage manager. What lay underneath stole every breath, including the viewers. A hidden lagoon the color of molten turquoise, circled by 200-foot cliffs. Half submerged in its center lounged the skeletal remains of a 1748 Spanish galleon. Her masts draped with gold-leafed kelp that shimmered like cathedral organ pipes in the moonwash. She had no name visible, only a crest carved into the stern. A lion devouring the world. "Gentlemen," Elias rasped. "Meet the San Leon, treasury ship to a king who believed oceans existed to carry his ego." His voice cracked on a laugh that turned into a wet cough. Black droplets spattered the rock. Blood older than this night, yet still unpaid. Jared's first instinct screamed gold. Enough doubloons to buy every crew member a plantation. Enough emerald escudos to silence creditors across 3 continents. But the galleon's cannon ports gaped open like dark mouths, and inside them glinted not iron shot but sealed copper tubes, each the length of a man's arm, each stamped with the Habsburg seal. Charts, not coins. Sea atlas to every reef, current, and lee shore between Cartagena and Canton. Knowledge worth empires, or worth burning empires down. The Hermit produced a corncob pipe, now cracked from earlier use, and packed it with the last pinch of Jared's tobacco, the gift that had bought them this vantage. He lit the bowl with flint, inhaled, then exhaled a ghost blue question. "What will you ransom tonight, Captain? Your men's future, or your conscience?" Surf pounded the cliff base like artillery practicing for Armageddon. The sound became a metronome ticking off heartbeats. 1,000 left. 950. Jared's palm found the pouch at his belt. Empty, yet somehow heavier, weighted by obligation. He thought of the scurvy swelling his sailor's gums, of the cook who'd slit his own throat 2 nights prior because the pain of hunger outweighed the fear of death. Gold could buy meat, citrus, life. Charts could buy safer passages, could save hundreds of ships, thousands of lives, yet could also prolong wars fought over trade routes. Boone leaned in, voice trembling between awe and terror. "Sir, tide's turning. We either climb down now or we climb down never." Elias chose that moment to double over. A barbed arrowhead, fletching frayed by decades, protruded from his sternum like an accusing finger. He had carried it since before Jared was born, had walked 3 decades with death stitched inside his lung, waiting for interest to come due. Blood, black as the volcanic glass beneath their feet, seeped around the shaft. "Told you," he whispered. "Forgiveness tastes of blood." Jared caught the hermit as he crumpled, felt the man's ribs grind like old ship timbers. Elias pressed a roll of vellum into Jared's hand, sealed with wax the color of dried scabs. "Return it to the sea, not to man," he begged. "Promise me, or the reef will remember." His eyes rolled white, yet held enough light to burn a hole through Jared's resolve. Below, the reef gate began its slow-motion slam. White foam fangs gnashed higher, louder, faster. Chain rattle reverb surf against coral became a snare drum countdown inside every skull. 400 heartbeats. 350. Jared slid the vellum inside his shirt, next to the empty tobacco pouch. 2 relics. One given in generosity, one accepted in desperation, both demanding the same blood price. He stood, met the eyes of his skeleton crew, and voiced the choice that would cleave their futures. We can fill our pockets with tubes that chart the world, or fill our souls with seed that feeds it. But we cannot fill both. Decide now. No one spoke. The surf answered with cannonade. The moon slid behind cloud, erasing the galleon's golden bones, leaving only the copper tubes winking like malevolent stars. Somewhere in that darkness lurked the second cove, sketched in a margin Jared hadn't yet seen, waiting to either save them or swallow them whole. He took the first step downward, boots skidding on glass-sharp rock, heart hammering the tempo of the receding tide. Behind him, Elias exhaled one last plume of blue smoke that the wind shredded into nothing. The promise was made. The ledger was open, and the ocean began to close its iron door. The arrowhead entered Elias Finch's back like a key sliding into a lock no one wanted opened. Black blood burst outward, painting Jared's forearm in warm, iron-rich stripes. The hermit's knees buckled, yet his eyes stayed welded to the lagoon below, turquoise water now rippling with moonlit shrapnel as the reef gate began its murderous slam. Surf fangs gnashed higher. 400 heartbeats left. Jared caught the falling man, felt ribs grind like old ship timbers. Around them, the crew froze, half turned toward the galleon's copper tubes gleaming seductively in open cannon ports, half facing their captain who suddenly wore crimson gilt on his sleeve. Tobacco had bought them this vantage. Now blood demanded interest. Elias pressed a roll of vellum into Jared's palm, sealed with wax the color of dried scabs. "Return it to the sea," he rasped, each syllable bubbling through fluid. "Promise me, or the reef will remember." 300 heartbeats. A second arrow hissed past Jared's ear, struck the volcanic rock, sparked star blue. Descendants of the original galleon guard erupted from cliffside shadows. Crossbows, rusted cutlasses, bare feet silent on stone. Seal Clan privateers, skin painted in tar stripes, eyes reflecting lantern light like wolves caught in a midnight scope. They howled, not in rage, but in ledger-balancing joy. Boone leveled a pistol, but Jared yanked him down. "Hold! We're trespassers on their cathedral." Words tasted like rust. Survival now required humility, not hot lead point. 200 heartbeats. The attackers formed a crescent, 20 men, maybe more, blocking descent to the lagoon, yet leaving one narrow throat open, a goat path slick with spray. A challenge, not a siege. Jared understood. They wanted to see the choice, gold or gospel. Before they collected the feed, he shoved the vellum inside his shirt, next to the empty tobacco pouch. 2 relics. One given in generosity, one accepted in desperation, both demanding the same blood price. "To me!" he barked. Crew snapped into a defensive ring around the dying hermit, cutlasses outward. Yet every gaze flicked longingly toward the galleon's copper tubes glinting below. Surf hammered the cliff base. Artillery practicing for Armageddon. 150 heartbeats. Elias convulsed, fingers clawing Jared's lapel. "Listen." San Leon carried more than charts. Seed vault, maize, citrus, wheat enough to feed fleets. King hid it from his own people. Blood dotted his lips like dark punctuation. Take seeds, not maps. End scurvy. End war. The revelation detonated inside Jared's skull. Gold doubloons would buy plantations. Seed could buy peace. Yet seeds meant nothing if they drowned here. 100 heartbeats. A crossbow bolt thunked into the sand between Jared's boots. Warning shot. The SEAL clan leader stepped forward, face painted half gold, half bone white. He pointed at the copper tubes, then at Jared's heart, then at the narrowing reef gate. Message clear. Choose, pay, leave. Before ocean claims everything. Jared's pulse became a drumbeat countdown. He glanced at Boone, at the skeletal crew, at the hermit whose life was ebbing with every froth line the tide drew. The empty tobacco pouch pressed against his ribs like an accusing finger. You shared once, share again. He stood, boots skidding on glass-sharp rock, and voiced the choice that would cleave their futures. We can fill our pockets with tubes that chart the world, or fill our souls with seed that feeds it. But we cannot fill both. Decide now. No one spoke. The surf answered with cannonade. The moon slid behind cloud, erasing the galleon's golden bones, leaving only the copper tubes winking like malevolent stars behind him. Elias exhaled one last plume of blue smoke that the wind shredded into nothing. The promise was made. The ledger was open, and the ocean began to close its iron door. The reef gate slammed like a guillotine. White foam teeth crunching coral, the Atlantic roaring its verdict. 30 seconds. Maybe less. Jared's crew didn't wait for permission. They dove headfirst into chaos. Crossbow bolts hissed, striking rock in star-blue sparks. Boone shoulder rolled, pistol barked once. An attacker cartwheeled into the tide, blood threading the turquoise like crimson smoke. Chain rattle metronome, surf against iron, became the battlefield's drum, counting down heartbeats no one had left to spend. Jared skidded to Elias, pressed palm against the hermit's leaking wound. Stay breathing. I need the rest of the story. Elias grinned through crimson teeth. Story ends when you decide who eats tomorrow. He shoved the wax-sealed vellum harder into Jared's fist. Seed vault, galleon hold, maize, citrus, wheat, king's insurance against famine. Charts lie, seeds don't. Choose. 25 seconds. Above, the moon slit open by racing cloud, casting strobe light on the San Leon's masts. Copper tubes glinted in cannon ports' siren song of empire, while below decks, behind a false bulkhead, waited oiled hemp sacks that could feed a fleet. Jared's mind detonated. Gold buys plantations. Seed buys peace. Both rot if they drown here. A bolt sliced his sleeve. Skin burned open, salt air kissed raw nerve. Pain focused him. He spotted bones Malone pinned beneath a fallen attacker, cutlass inches from throat. No deliberation. Jared lunged, tackled the assailant, felt ribs crack under his shoulder. They rolled. Jared came up swinging, blade opening a tar-striped chest. Blood sprayed across the copper tubes. First coat of many. Micro payoff ignited. This time he saved the man beside him, not the treasure beyond reach. Retention dopamine for viewers who'd endured acti failure. 15 seconds. Reef fangs gnashed higher. Surf now reached the goat path, escape artery dissolving under foam. Boone pointed to the galleon's foremast. Ancient hemp still threaded through block and tackle, lines vanishing into cliffside ringbolts. Swing for it, Captain. Like pirates of perdition. Jared barked orders. 2 groups. Seed hold and chart hold. Rig lines for traverse. Move. Crew split. Boots skidding on glass-sharp rock. Jared led the seed team, Bones, Cookie, and fever-thin Tyndall, sliding down scree toward the lagoon's edge. Copper team followed Boone, each man clenching a blade between teeth, eyes reflecting moon and greed. 10 seconds. They leapt onto the San Leon's broken quarterdeck, planks groaning like dying whales. Salt spray needled faces. Rigging whipped overhead like angry serpents. Jared's shoulder burned where the bolt had kissed. He used the pain, let it sharpen vision. Below deck's hatch yawned. Darkness exhaling centuries of sealed breath. He plunged inside. Lantern flicker revealed mountains of hemp sacks, each stamped with a crown devouring the world. Knifework split one. Golden maize spilled like captured sunrise. Another. Limes so preserved they glowed emerald. The future of every scurvy-ravaged ship bottled in this hold. Above, copper team pride tubes free, stuffing shirts, belts, mouths. Men transformed into pack mules for empire. Their laughter cracked. Manic 0.5 seconds. Surf exploded through the reef arch. Geysers of white 20 feet high. The entire lagoon shuddered, water level rising past Jared's shins in heartbeats. Planks began to separate, iron nails screaming withdrawal. Lines now, Jared roared. Crew slashed remaining rigging from ring bolts, fashioned an improvised zipline across the cliff face. First man swung. Tyndall, seed sack clenched between teeth, rope singing under weight. He landed on goat path just as waves severed it behind him. Success point one by one they flew through spray and night, sacks of seed and copper clanking like church bells. Last man. Boone, overweight with charts, rope fraying against salt-sharp rock. Halfway across, the line snapped. Boone plummeted. Cut to black on his scream, surf swallowing sound, moon blinking out. A single heartbeat of silence. Then sunrise cracked the Atlantic like a molten coin slid into a cold slot. The Meridian rose on a swell, her patched sails pregnant with gold-pink light, while behind her the hidden island sank back into fog, reef gate sealed. Secrets swallowed. On the quarterdeck stood Captain Jared Whitlock. Bandaged, salt-streaked, alive. In his left hand hung the empty tobacco pouch, once the last comfort of 47 starving days. In his right, a single copper tube, no longer stuffed with imperial charts but with seeds that rattled like tiny bells of salvation that he upended the pouch. Golden maize kernels, emerald lime pips, and wheat the color of sunrise spilled across the leather, filling the void that nicotine had vacated. The scent that lifted was not Virginia leaf but life itself. Earth after rain, continents waiting to be fed. Every sailor gathered in a circle of hush, watching the future pour from a gift that had started with a stranger's generosity. Boone, rescued at dawn by a rope hurled from Tyndall's bleeding hands, clapped Jared's shoulder. We came for gold, Captain. Found a kingdom bigger than coin. Jared's reply came on a whisper only the camera heard. Sometimes the smallest generosity grows into a forest of salvation, if you guard it long enough to let it bloom. Cut to the ship's galley 1 week later. Copper tube propped like a chalice, first green shoots sprouting from damp rags. Scurvy-ravaged gums already pinking, laughter replacing the hollow cough that had haunted nights. Montage of ports, Sierra Leone, Barbados, Boston, where crew distributed handfuls of seed to captains whose men were one meal from mutiny. Each gift given with the same ritual words. Chew this, taste tomorrow, pass it on. Word spread faster than trade winds. Within a year, no naval log recorded scurvy deaths on vessels carrying ghost key seed. The British Admiralty offered fortunes for the source. Jared declined. Instead, he etched the coordinates of the hidden crater lake, accessible only during a 7-minute low-tide window every 18 years, into a new journal, sealed it inside the same copper tube, and locked it in a glass case labeled, "Forgiveness is a perishable crop. Plant it quickly, sunset." The meridian slips into a horizon painted the exact shade of dried tobacco. Voiceover, direct address, future tense. Wraps around the viewer like a main sheet in gentle wind. One day you'll hold something that feels like your last comfort, last dollar, last hour, last excuse. You'll face a stranger who needs it more than you need to keep it. In that moment you'll either clutch or release. Clutching buys one sunset. Releasing buys forests you may never walk. Choose the forest, and when the trees bear fruit, send a seed back to the sea, so the cycle never breaks. Camera tilts up to reveal a shooting star scratching the dark. Same arc the Hermit's arrow traced weeks earlier. Symmetry complete.